tape.
Hey, how are you? Good.
Hey, Joy.
Frank, how are you?
Good, good. Hi, people are good.
Hi, Joy. How are you?
Put it down. If anybody needs it, it's at the base here. Well, there's stuff. There you go. Are you already rolling there, Lamar?
Yes, we are live there already.
Is it my recording?
Oh, I like it.
Might have to whip it out. There you go. You got it. Hold it. I'm out of the steam now. Oh, you're not plugged in yet. Need a little extension? Oh, you got one. Last check for me.
Oh, the state of the city? It's in Spanish. You had me cracking up on it.
Okay, how you been? Do it. Yeah, I'll send it. Gonna leave it.
I do. I live in Antioch, and he's the one coming through the post. You see this whole thing? How are you?
Orange, right?
Oh, and the sign here.
And don't forget, this train's going to depart in just about 2 or 3 minutes. Too,
Yeah.
so.
Which way is it heading? That way? Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Where do you want me?
Right, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to cut a lot of it out. Put her over here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You know I'm an amateur at this. Oh, yeah.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. No, not anymore. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the greatest city that, in my opinion, God ever created, and that's the city of Antioch. My name is Lamar Thorpe, and for our press, that is Lamar Thorpe, and I'm the mayor of the city of Antioch.
Seriously, guy. It's Antioch.
It's your opening.
That's classic Antioch right there. So, all right. So, thank you for joining us here today on this very important day. Dr. Clyde Lewis, you can join us up here. And I'm joined here today with. I just realized that's my fan club.
Yeah, there you go.
So where I'm joined here today by some very important people. We have Dr. Clyde Lewis, who's the Vice President of the Antioch Unified School District. We're also joined by Andy Lee, who is the President of the Contra Costa Community College District. Marie Ars, who is the Chair of our Parks and Recreation Commission here in the City of Antioch. We're also joined by Councilwoman Tamisha Torres Walker of District 1. We're in District 1. And Dwayne Eubanks, who is the President of the Antioch Historical Society and Museum. And of course, you can't talk about District 1 without talking about Joy Motz, our former councilwoman, but also chair of the Rivertown Preservation Society. So thank you for joining us today. We're in the middle of a national awakening that has spun out of anti-Asian American and Pacific Islander hate. Every day it seems like all of us are witnesses to some of the most jarring headlines on social media, our local and national television news outlets, and the newspapers. An elderly Thai immigrant dies after being shoved to the ground. A Filipino American is slashed in the face with a box cutter. A Chinese woman is slapped and then set on fire. These are just a few examples of what we can no longer ignore, let alone normalize in our city, our state, and throughout our country, which is why we're here today. Last night, I received notice from our chief of police that 2 Asian women, ages 50 and 70, were violently attacked and robbed at Antioch's only Asian American grocery store, Country Square Market. Our police department is investigating this matter and will look into whether or not this was a possible hate crime. This is unacceptable by any measure. I want to personally applaud my colleagues on the Antioch City Council, Councilwoman Monica Wilson, Councilwoman Lori Overchuk, and Councilwoman Tamisha Torres Walker, as well as Councilmember Mike Burbanica, for unanimously passing a resolution condemning anti-Asian American and Pacific Islander hate. Today, I am delighted to sign this proclamation in front of all of you to uplift the fact that our city will not stand by hoping things get better. And so that proclamation is here with me today. I will be signing it, and I will also then be reading it and presenting it to Mr. Andy Lee. Proclamation denouncing anti-Asian racism. Whereas Antioch is home to diverse communities and has for many generations, whereas we are disturbed and alarmed by the severity and frequency of hate crimes and race-based harassment of Asians and Asian American Pacific Islanders associated with COVID-19. The Asian American experience in the Bay Area is a complex and multifaceted history. Whereas the first major wave of Asians came to the Bay Area during the gold rush, and many worked on the Transcontinental Railroad in the 19th century and were met with racial hostility. In 1876, Antioch's Chinatown, which we're literally standing on, was burned down, and it later became Waldy Plaza. People of Chinese heritage were banned from walking Antioch City streets after sunset. Under this building right here, there are tunnels where we marginalized our Chinese brothers and sisters. During the 19th century, anti-Chinese sentiment resulted in conflict and extremely restrictive regulations and norms concerning where Asian Americans could live and in which occupations they could work, which often enforced with violence. Whereas today, there are nearly 1.7 million Asians in the Bay Area, constituting nearly 24% of the overall population. We pledge not to repeat the egregious acts of discrimination in the past and present history. Whereas having Chinese ancestry or any other ancestry does not make a person more vulnerable to COVID-19, no race, nationality, or ethnicity is responsible for COVID-19. Whereas ignorance is the lifeblood of conspiracies that hamper our ability to fight the pandemic and endanger vulnerable lives. Whereas the City of Antioch recognizes the negative impact of institutional and structural racism past and present. Now, therefore, I, Lamar A. Thorpe, Mayor of the City of Antioch, do hereby proclaim that racism against Asians and Asian Americans shall not be tolerated in any form, and we stand in support of individuals and communities targeted by association with COVID-19 and urge everyone to interrupt instances of racism and intolerance by speaking up in support of equity, justice, and inclusion. With that, I will hand this to Frank here.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh. And I will open it up to comments by board president.
Thank you, Antioch Mayor Lamar Thorpe and City Councils for joining many other government entities and passing the resolution to condemn the Asian hate crime. And thank you, everyone, and thank you, Antioch residents, for supporting the API community. I'm very honored to accept this resolution. Recently, because of the pandemic and the hate speech from our former president, there has been a surge of the anti-Asian hate crime in the United States. In 2020, the overall hate crime rate decreased by 7%. But against Asian American, it increased by 160%. And it created hardship for many Asian families, including myself. And I think Mayor has listed a few of the incidents, and I don't want to list those. There are many, and it's reported around 40,000 hate crime or hate incidents so far. So the resolution is very important for Asian Pacific Islanders, especially those living in Antioch. It let them know and see the support from the community during this hardship. So thank you very much. I know the mayor is going to talk about his proposal, and I'd like to share a little history of Chinese immigrants in the United States. The first transcontinental railroad was built between 1863 and 1869. During that period, over 10,000 Chinese laborers worked on the construction of the Central Pacific portion of the railroad, which is the toughest part of the railroad. Because of the dangerous working condition, over 1,000 of them died on the project. After the completion of the railroad, it took only 6 days to travel from New York to San Francisco. Before that, it took 6 months to travel from New York to San Francisco. In the 1960s, Chinese also made a great contribution to the construction of the Delta levees. Without them, the Delta would not have taken decades. The Delta would have taken decades longer to develop into one of the richest agricultural area in the world. We are sitting right here in this Delta area. Although Chinese immigrants made a great contribution to the community, they were treated badly. They were not allowed to walk on the street in Antioch after sunset, just like the mayor said. On the April 29th, 1876, all Chinese in Antioch were driven out of Antioch, and their homes in Chinatown were burned down the next day. On May 6, 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act became a United States federal law, signed by the President Chester Arthur. It was repealed over 60 years later on December 17, 1943. During that time, the Chinese Americans lived in a miserable life here in the United States. So thank you, Mayor Lamar Thorpe, very much for your proposal to remember the history of Chinese immigrants and issue the official apology from Antioch City for the terrorizing of Chinese immigrants. I look forward working with you and your team and Antioch citizens to implement the proposal. I hope we all work hard and build a community we can all feel safe and enjoy. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. And so folks know, Board President Lee is our only Asian American Pacific Islander community member to serve an elected office here in Eastern Contra Costa County. And so we're happy that he plays an important role in bringing a different perspective to our public policy discussions. All right, from there, okay. As mayor, I want to express my deepest sympathies to the AAPI community and pray that we get through this by working together to bring an end to violence and terror. In that spirit, today I'm announcing a series of proposals to make amends to the Bay Area's Chinese American community for historic wrongs suffered at the hands of the city's founding community when xenophobia was at its highest. Antioch is one of California's oldest cities. And like California, Antioch was founded at a time when xenophobia spread like wildfire. Like the rest of California, in Antioch's founding period, discriminating against, terrorizing, exploiting, and hating Asian Americans, but especially Chinese immigrants, was commonplace. We know the Chinese immigrant labor force, as Board President Lee stated, played a major role in building the Transcontinental Railroad and fueled American enterprise and wealth. And the Delta levee system was literally provides the largest source of water to many Californians from Antioch through the Central Valley to Los Angeles County. Chinese immigrants helped build that important levee system. And so I was we had a special guest, Controller Betty Yee, and she told me she was going to log on to our Zoom, but I know she had a busy schedule, so I'm sure she sends her regards. I'll continue by saying their contributions and presence in the community have not always gone unnoticed. Through storytelling by elders in our community, some of us have come to learn about Antioch's sundown policies that literally made it illegal to be Asian American and to take refuge underground. These proposals I'm announcing today are aimed at making amends to the Bay Area's Chinese community for how the city of Antioch treated its descendants over 100 years ago. The proposals are as follows. Funding some form of permanent exhibit at the Antioch Museum. And for that, I'm going to have the newest president of the Antioch Historical Society and Museum, Wayne Eubanks, talk a little about that.
Thank you, Mayor Thorpe and distinguished guests. I'm Dwayne Eubanks. I'm president of the Antioch Historical Society. I'm one of many volunteers who donate our time, our efforts in the collection and preservation and display of historic, of Antioch history. There's too many names that came before me to name here I'd probably leave somebody out and hurt some feelings. But the work that we have done has been accomplished here at the Antioch Historical Society Museum is well evidenced when you come and visit our fine museum. The museum, I have to put some plugs in for the museum because that's what I do. So the museum is located in the historic Riverview Union High School, built in 1911. It's 1500 West 4th Street. It's a building on the National Register of Historic Places. And so we've been closed due to the COVID-19 problem, just like most people. So after a year of closure, I'm happy to announce plans for a limited reopening in early June, and we have a committee of people that are working diligently on the plans and procedures and policies to reopen safely. Right now, I'm kind of glad I'm not in that meeting. It's kind of a lengthy meeting. So I just also wanted to let everyone know that the museum has historical newspapers and articles going back to the 1870s. Some of the articles that were provided in the SF Gate article came from the Historical Society. And for instance, the Chinatown map, the 1926 picture of the Palace Hotel and the Chinese tunnels, as well as the photos of Chinese merchants in 1895. Those are all part of our collection. So and it's all there for the community to come visit and to view. History matters. We at the Historical Society are excited because this day is the dawning of a new era for Antioch. As we approach the sesquicentennial year for Antioch, the mayor and the Historical Society are planning to create a permanent program celebrating Chinese history with exhibits that allow us to examine our past, appreciate the patience, endurance, and grace of the Chinese and Asian American Pacific Islander people. May is Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and we are celebrating it with articles and exhibits on Chinese history. In closing, I want to thank you for coming today, and I want to leave you with two quotations. One is from philosopher, well, forget philosopher. Yeah, his mouth is dry. George Santana said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And I think that's well said. Also from the Bible, John 8:33. Then you will know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dwayne, for that. And it was brought to my attention that actually the 1976 Terror Act, 1876 Act of Terror, when they burned down Chinatown, that was not the only time. There are other articles that point out to other several instances where Chinese buildings, Chinese residences were in fact burned down by local residents. We also want to, the next proposal is that we also want to designate a Chinatown Historic District with appropriate historical markings. And so my goal is to make what we're standing on the Chinese Historic District here in Antioch with the appropriate signage and the appropriate story that kind of timelines what happened here in Antioch's early start. So that'll be hopefully an opportunity not only for residents to enjoy, but as a destination for people throughout our area to come and learn more about the important, rich history of Chinese immigrants in our community. So I'm going to hand it over to Joy Mott's chair of our Rivertown Preservation Society.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of the Rivertown Preservation Society, I am proud to be here today as we gather to ensure that the past and the present story of Antioch is one that acknowledges our complex history and generations of diverse populations that built our community. Some may say that what happened in the past has no effect on who we are today. We believe this to be incorrect, and that to the contrary, to not acknowledge the wrongs or intolerances of yesterday can only make more plausible that they may happen again. When we speak of atrocities such as 9/11 or Nazi concentration camps, for those that experienced these times, they will tell you to never forget. To not remember, to not discuss, to not teach about acts that caused great pain and human despair, we are most likely doomed to repeat. Whether it affects a nation or a small community, memorializing difficult times and times of great celebration should be, and frankly must be, part of our story. So today the city of Antioch takes the first step in remembering a very tough part of our history, of our Asian Chinese residents who were so instrumental in building our Antioch community and communities of the Bay Area and the state of California. And what makes this acknowledgement and proclamation important and of even more significance is the intolerable hate that has most recently befallen our Asian communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. Here in Antioch, we will fight against racism and intolerance against people of all ethnicities and fight for equity, justice, and inclusion. And by doing so, we will never forget. So Mayor, we look forward as a Rivertown Preservation Society to be part of creating this important historical monument and district here, and we will celebrate that day with you. Thank you.
And obviously our Parks and Recreation Commission will play a big role in that as well, working with the Antioch Rivertown Preservation Society. So I want to give Marie Arce, our chair, an opportunity to say something.
Hi, my name is Marie Arce, and I'm the chair of the Antioch Parks and Recreation Commission. I'm grateful to be here today to witness this critical first step in educating our community on our rich Antioch history and acknowledging our wrongdoings to make it right with our community. I look forward to working with the Antioch Preservation Society, the Rivertown Preservation Society, as a Parks and Recreation Commission chair, and any continued efforts with our community and our city council. Thank you.
All right, and then with these types of instances, there's always opportunity to really engage our youth in this process. And so our next proposal will be a downtown mural project that commemorates Antioch's historic Chinese community. And we think that that's going to be a great opportunity, great community building opportunity with our students at the Antioch Unified School District and some of our private schools and charter schools to ensure we're engaging our young people. So for that, I'll invite Dr. Clyde Lewis to.
So thank you all for being here. So I didn't have a prepared speech, so I probably won't be as eloquent as my colleagues, but I would like to sort of reference one of my favorite philosophers, Lao Tzu. So in this quote he says, if you would take, you must first give. This is the beginning of intelligence. So in order for us to understand ourselves, where we want to be, we have to sort of take a hard look at where we are and where we've been. And in that spirit, I look forward to collaborating with the city, Parks and Rec, and my other colleagues, and encouraging conversation so we can move our community forward. Because the contributions of our AAPI populations is immense, and has been for a long time. I have children who are in that population, as well as my wife. Well, my wife obviously is from that population as well, if my children are, right? Makes sense. So, right. So we've been having conversations, as these incidents have increased around safety for my family. So it's a timely conversation, and I think that these initiatives will move us forward collectively, hopefully. And I'm always happy to have conversations for people who have questions later. So, thank you.
All right, and finally, as African Americans, myself, Councilwoman Torres Walker, Dr. Clyde Lewis. Oh, Dwayne.
I know.
You just let him back in, so I'm just kidding. I'm only kidding. we playing him. No, I'm only joking. But you know what? And on a serious note, we know the pain of not having your government acknowledge and reconcile through forgiveness its historical wrongs. We live it every single day. To date, no apology about slavery in this country. No reparations, not in the form of some handout check that some people keep exploiting, but a concentrated effort to make right for our historical wrongs. And so we live that pain every single day. And so, for us, this is very, very important. And so therefore, we'll be advancing a resolution that officially apologizes on behalf of the city of Antioch for terrorizing Chinese immigrants in our community. And so I'll hand it over to Councilwoman Torres Walker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Tamisha Torres Walker, elected representative to Antioch City Council, District 1. You know, when you buy your first home, you don't say, I sure am gonna fill this home with hate. When you move to a community, you don't say to yourself, I sure can't wait to bring as much hate and harm to this community as possible. I stand here today as a Black Latina in solidarity with the API community against all racial hate and harm. I do not stand here today to apologize for whiteness. That is not my role. It is not my role as a person who has to show up every day in a dark body to apologize for white fragility, anti-Blackness, transphobia, xenophobia, racism, classism, othering, fear, white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism. That is not my role. What side are we on today is the question. What side of history are we on in Antioch and across the Bay Area in this country? In a time when Derek Chauvin is on trial for the murder of George Floyd, and Dante Wright's family is mourning his murder and demanding justice, we stand here before you in an effort to reconcile a history, a moment in time that has been passed down through generations. Here at home, a place where we all have been able to call home, where others have been denied the privilege to walk our streets freely and have been forced underground, figuratively and physically. In a time where in between May and June will be the 100-year anniversary of the destruction of Black Wall Street, burned to the ground in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Greenwood. We all remember that history. We are not born hateful. Hate is learned and passed down through generations. And because Antioch has chosen to rise from the ashes of a horrible past into a more inclusive future, we stand here before you all today, united against racial hate and othering. We say that opportunity lives here in Antioch. Opportunity can only live here in Antioch when we all, as Antioch residents, fight just as hard for belonging as we have to get beyond our past and to move forward in a future where we are not defined by our past, but we acknowledge our past so that everybody can belong. I would like to thank the storytellers, the folks at the Historical Society, people who cultivate our past and our history for future generations to learn from our experience. So like Ms. Mott said, we do not repeat our wrongs. I would like to thank the mayor for standing up today and days before this to say we have got to do differently here in the city of Antioch for communities of color and poor communities. When we say, I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to a republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all, I cringe. Because today, we still do not have liberty, which is freedom, and we still do not have justice, which is slow to come for communities of color and people in dark bodies who have faced harm. I'm happy to be a resident of Antioch. I'm happy to represent Antioch, and I'm happy to stand here before you today in a dark body as a Black Latina to say, we see you, we see you. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, those are our 4 proposals. So I'll be working with each individual organization. I'll be working with the Historical Society to come to develop the price tag, for the Historical Society to do what they need to do for the permanent display, and how much funding it'll cost to do the Historic Rivertown District, and that obviously be like the appropriate signage and whatnot. And then I will be working with Councilmember Torres Walker on our official. We'll be co-authoring the resolution for an official apology from the City of Antioch. So with that, I will thank everyone for joining us here today. Appreciate all of you for being here, and thank you, and have a good afternoon.
But for some of the recent hate incidents directed at the Asian community, and some of those connecting here to Antioch, would this have to happen? Were those recent incidents the impetus for this proposal or some proposal?
I think the impetus to do something now has come for the very reason you're here, because you're reporting on it, for the very reason that there are citizens here, because we're all learning about this, and it's what we're seeing on television, what we're seeing on the news is very disturbing. Now, in terms of this history in Antioch, there are limited people who know this history of Antioch. I learned about it. Our former mayor, Don Freitas, gave me a tour and told me about the tunnels, and I took that for granted. What a privilege to have the former mayor tell me about Antioch's history. Well, what about all of our young first graders in our public schools who don't know about this history? And so you know, the moment certainly got us here today, but I think eventually we would have gotten here, because I think our city council is very cognizant of equity, culture, the importance of celebrating it, but not just celebrating it, making it part of our fabric as a community. Okay. If anybody has any other questions for anybody else that, you know.
Just for people to know, there's an existing tunnel underneath Rain Salon.
Also,
If you ever want to check it out, the opening, there used to be an opening here, but the new owner of this building filled in the subfloor, so it's gone. I've seen it.
So you can still go in now?
Yeah, obviously talk to the owner, Gene.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you guys making available some of the articles on display?
The Historical Society is
Yes, we're in May.
No, is there? It's so we can use it today to help illustrate your show. Do you have it online?
I can only send it to you. I can only send it to you electronically.
Absolutely, that's what we all need.
Perfect. Yeah.
And can is it something that you have made up, or are you gonna put it together?
We'll give it to the SF Gate for their article.
So it's ready to
So
go.
you can push it to us?
He can email it.
We have a procedure for that.
Okay.
We'll contact me afterwards.
Yes, thank you. We're all there.
Yeah, we're
So
all there.
Dwayne is going to be the keeper of the information, and so, but you know, that's what we want right now. The Antioch Historical Society is all volunteer, and so for this project, we specifically want to fund the efforts to get this done as quickly as possible for the permanent display and any other opportunities that may exist there. All right.
Well, actually, do one last question. Because the city owns this land, the parking lot there and the parking lot there that was Chinese resident owned, they were burned out, and you spoke of reparations. Is there going to be any effort to reach the descendants of those Chinese residents who were their ancestors to see about compensating them actually for the ownership of their land today, since the city now owns it?
We can absolutely take a look at that, and that can be part of the Historical Society project that we fund.
Okay.
So, but again, we got to get the funding to them in order to make this happen.
Where are you hoping the funding's going to come from?
Oh, the funding is going to come from the general fund.
From the general fund?
Yeah.
And it would have to be approved by the council then?
Yes.
Is there a next step here, or like you guys?
So the next step, all of these 4 items will be on the council agenda. Yeah, I'm not sure if it'll be for the next council meeting in April, but probably early May.
Thank you.
We're still wrapping up some police reforms.
A formal apology to the AAPI community, does that have to be approved by the city council, or is that something you can already?
We want an official resolution. I mean, I can apologize right here, right now, but I think it's more appropriate if our governing body does it. because, you know, the city was incorporated in 1872. 4 years after that, that's when it officially became a government. And 4 years after that, they literally burned down Chinatown. And I think it's appropriate for the governing body to make that decision, not just me as an individual. All right, I got to pick up my daughter from school. She gets out early.
Uber. I'm totally joking. If you all can email your prepared remarks so we can get those in the record, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah. What time is it? 11:43. I only got like 10 minutes.
All right.
You want to stop this?
Yeah, please.
You want to do it yourself so I don't mess it up?
So you don't break it.